Do you think there's a space that curates and creates nightmares? Maybe not curates. I read Herschel curated nightmares. That's a great comment. A space that generates nightmares, and it's sort of a monolith in terms of we all have this space within ourselves, and it's a dream space we share. Okay, that's the question. Okay, that's exactly the question where we begin tonight. And this gets wild because I got a story for you. I got a story about the actual nightmare fuel station. Okay, so we'll get to that in just a second. But that's what's on my mind tonight. As you know, this is a conversation. There's no truth to be found here. It's mostly ideas, philosophical constructs, kind of looking at folklore and the future and trying to determine in mythology and all the rest of the stuff, emerging tech and emergent tech, things like this. And what does this look like in the next 5, 10, 15 years? By the way, regarding that, I saw a tweet, shout out, I'm not sure who you are, Twitter X, just a little while ago. And somebody said this, that specifically, and I paraphrase because I wasn't thinking of talking about it, but it just came to mind right now, that the next 1,000 years of humanity will probably be decided in the next 10. Meaning, of course, the AI aspect of this, okay? And, well, which we don't have to get into, but there certainly is an uncanny valley effect of the AI aspect of, well, you've seen those Boston Dynamics robots and, the digi-dogs, as I call them, the DARPA dogs. Have you seen that? Speaking of which, speaking of nightmare fuel, have you seen the video of the dog? There's like an actual dog like on a walk or something. They have this dog on a leash. And they bring one of those robo dogs, the digi-dogs, the DARPA dogs, whatever you want to call them, the actual like mechanical dogs, to meet this real organic dog. And this dog is like super excited at first. He's like, oh, yeah, right. This is going to be great. And then this dog walks up, this mechanical dog, this digi-dog, and the real dog loses its shit, starts for it not actually crapping on the floor, but understands and realizes that, wait a minute, this is not a dog at all. This is something created to fool me and make me believe it's a dog. And then the real dog starts losing his mind. I'll try and find that. It's on Twitter X. I saw it maybe a week ago, but it just came to mind right now. That right there is that uncanny valley. It's that space of the nightmare fuel station that even a dog has, because they understand and recognize what belongs inside the natural order and what belongs outside of the natural order. And there is a very stark terror that comes with that breaking of those two spaces, or the encroachment of those two spaces on each other, right? Anyway, so that's where we're at tonight. That's let's see. We started a little bit late. Let me make sure we're good time-wise. Got a timer there. Okay, everything's good. I see you guys in the chat. I'll come say hi at the bottom of the hour. Thanks for being cool and chill and hanging out and being part of this. But yeah, this one to me is one of those weird places, because you know me. I don't dream a lot. I probably do, but I don't remember a ton of them. I have never dream journaled, right? And this type of stuff. Like, if you asked me and made me answer directly and, Mike, do you think we actually share a dream space at all, anywhere, any two of us or whatever? I'm not even sure about that. There's a lot of stories that suggest that may or may not be true. But, as you know me, I'm not the arbiter of truth anyway. The universe is going to do whatever the hell it cares, regardless of what I think. Or, no offense, regardless of also what you think. It's going to be what it is. And here we are being humans in a wide cosmos indeed that's probably more strange than we could ever imagine, okay? All right, so whether we do share that dream space or not, okay, again, so that's going to be one of the questions tonight. And of course, this monolith of the nightmare fuel station, maybe we share this particular space that is the primordial darkness in a way, sort of that mirror of the shadow self archetype that exists in our dreams, fueling, again, the nightmare fuel station, which again, you add one word to this and suddenly you imagine this space with clown attendants and just bizarre dreamscapes and maybe dilated time. We'll get to that. I've got a little story I'll read you in just a sec. But real quick, we're going to get a word from our sponsor, of course. But that's what's on my mind tonight. Dreams, the dreamscape, and of course, I'm calling this a nightmare fuel station. And the underlying question of all of this is specifically, do you think there's a space in the dream realm that is eternally oozing nightmare fuel? And I'm calling it the nightmare fuel station, meaning that, let's say, some primordial darkness, very Lovecraftian in the same sense, is actually really fueling the terror in our hearts. Or is it something else indeed? We're doing something entirely different. Back to the primordial dream, back to the beginning of all things, including, of course, let's say, back to the original aboriginal dreaming, pre-Big Bang, like before, when they said in the beginning there was nothing, there was darkness. Well, that very darkness Is it possible it still exists within our dream space that we share, and it's constantly and continually filling our minds and our hearts with unholy terror? That's what's on my mind tonight. We'll get to exactly what that means in just a second. So imagine this. I'm calling this a nightmare fuel station for this exact reason, okay? And this is a fictionalized account of what this might look like, okay? This whole nightmare business, okay? So 1 second here. Let me make sure everything is good to go. As you know, a conversation, looking to hear your thoughts on this as we get rolling. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubleminds.org. Okay, but here we go. Listen to this story. Now, imagine this. You're dreaming. It's a regular dream, all right? You're just doing whatever it is you do on a normal dream basis, and suddenly things start to go all Twilight Zone a little bit, almost like you've crossed a threshold in the dream space to a particular area that makes you feel uneasy, okay? That's the basis. Now, here you go. Fictionalized account. This is not me saying this, but listen to this. Written in the first person so you could imagine it's you. I was never good at sleeping. Even as a kid, my mind raced with too many thoughts, churning echoes of the day with fantastical anxieties. Nights melted into a single, endless darkness, punctuated by flashes of unsettling imagery. When the alarm finally rattled me awake, I'd blink at the unfamiliar shapes of my own bedroom, disoriented like I'd returned from a distant, hostile land. That night was different. The drive had been an endless monotony of moonlit tarmac, an exercise in fighting back drowsiness. Then the headlights caught it. A flickering neon sign announcing fuel and food, a crumbling mirage in that wasteland. Part of me, the sensible part, screamed that it was probably abandoned, but the exhaustion was a heavy weight, and whatever lurked inside that desolate outpost couldn't be worse than the gnawing emptiness of the highway. The air hummed around the rusting pumps. A thick silence only deserts know. The diner was open, though. Open was a generous word. The bulbs flickered angrily, casting long, distorted shadows. A single figure stood behind the counter, a too-wide grin splitting their face. No greeting, just those unblinking eyes fixated on me. The smile made the hairs on the back of my neck rise. The usual? The voice was a reedy whisper, unsettlingly cheerful against the desolate atmosphere. No, just gas, please, I managed, avoiding eye contact. Payment was strange. Not cash or credit, but a question. I should have run then. Instead, I answered, some half-remembered childhood fear about spiders spilling from my lips before I could stop it. The figure nodded, their grin widening almost impossibly. As I drove off, the place shimmered in the rearview mirror, then vanished, leaving only the empty road. Since then, it's been wrong. Tiny, impossible wrong. My keys never sit where I left them. Sometimes I swear the photos on my wall look subtly different, like the smiles are a touch wider. And last night, just as I drifted off, a scuttling, eight-legged shape flickered at the edge of my vision. I jerked awake, heart pounding, but of course, there was nothing but the familiar, mocking shadows of my own room. And there you go. That's a quick primer on what a nightmare fuel station might be like, and sort of a dreamscape in an uncanny valley with an entity that's not quite human, but not quite something else either. And notice, we'll get into this as it goes, that the payment is not cash or credit. The payment itself is a question. The payment is, you can have fuel for your car to leave this space. However, what the entity there needs from you is a piece of your deepest, darkest terror. So it can find you again and bring it to you whenever it likes. Now, again, the Dream Outpost, right? And so, again, fictional. This is not I didn't write this specifically for this. It was, again, AI generated, all the rest of the stuff. But super prompts, and that's the beauty, right? I think if you go back, and I probably read that superbly. Well done, Mike. But you get it that art is a funny thing. And so suddenly, this entire thing here has maybe even spawned a series in my head. I can see like a sort of a Twilight Zone style space where the Nightmare Fuel Station exists as a monolith of the dream world that we all share and we all visit. And for us to leave, it's a question. It's an answer. It's some deep, dark, unsettling fear we have to give up to get back to the real world. And then, of course, it's used against us. Yeah, wild stuff, right? In any case, so as we begin and get into this, now, the questions are many. Number one, tonight specifically, is the dream space a place where we share, whether it's fractured or not? We've talked about this in the past. More importantly, when we start to get to the idea of nightmares and this nightmare fuel itself, do you think there's a possibility that there's a singular place, or let's say even a massive place, where the nightmare fuel comes from? And again, the term nightmare fuel is exactly that. You see something that's so unsettlingly terrifying that you know you're not going to be able to shake it for days. You know, it kind of gives you that hair standing up on the back of your neck. You shudder even when it's warm outside because it's very cosmic horror, very Lovecraftian, right? So in that same place, we've all experienced this in some manner or another, and it does exist out there, this idea of the cosmic order, a violation of this natural order in the cosmic space, because we've experienced this, like I said, that idea in a regular world, almost like these two worlds encroaching on each other in our minds, in our hearts. Okay. Now the wild part is it possible now? And this is where my mind starts to go, whoa, okay, wait a minute. Is it possible there's a place, a space, whatever you want to call it, an area where nightmare fuel is created and distributed and brought to us? And this is, again, a fictionalized account of what that may look like. Maybe a desolate gas station in the middle of some Mojave-like desert that's a little bit swirly and miragey and isn't exactly, well, it doesn't seem very real, okay? But beyond that, is it possible we share this space in our minds and our hearts and in the dream realm? And maybe, just maybe, it is the monolith of the dream world, meaning sort of like the massive pillar, the center, where we all end up to bring dreams back to not just the dream realm as nightmares, but nightmares into the real world that we can share together. Just an idea. Just don't kill the messenger. I'm just bringing ideas. And it dawned on me when I thought of the term. It was literally, and the entire inspiration for the show tonight is nightmare fuel. That's it. I was like, wait a minute now. Hold on. If it's a thing, is there a place where it comes from? And of course, the Nightmare Fuel Station was born. But that's what's up tonight. That's what's on my mind. Lots of ways to look at this dream-wise and other things. And of course, there'll be some links in the description. I think they're already there. But if you look at this TV tropes, this is one of those things that's been around for a very long time. Let me just read a little bit of this to you, and then we'll take a quick break. And we got Matthew already lining up. And I'd love to hear your thoughts as well on this, guys. But here we go. So this is straight from tvtropes.com, which is a fantastic site, by the way. If you've never visited it, I use it often for the show. So this is here you go. Scary stuff. Really scary stuff. This is the stuff so horrifying, nightmare fuel, that it can give people the creeps for years. This scares the pants off of just about anyone to the author or creator's delight as a writer, right? This makes you shrink in the back of your chair or maybe even hide behind the sofa. Look over your shoulder and remind yourself what's going on is usually only fictional. For many horror films, achieving this effect is the whole point. And many in-universe examples arise because kids shouldn't watch horror films. Dun, 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 right? We know that because of, the old Friday the 13th and Freddy movies, right? What is it? Nightmare on Elm Street. But anyway, for some reason, many of us like to be scared on purpose. Therein lies the real dilemma, right? There may be a euphoria generated by surviving something that seems scary. Or maybe we know that fiction can't hurt us, not physically anyway, and the idea of choosing to be scared without the danger is fun. Some think it's cathartic or therapeutic in some way to explore our fears from a position of relative safety. In any case, this is normal for the genre. Others are fascinated by the very things that most people avoid. Many a time it overlaps with squick. I don't know what that is. We'll leave that there. Let's see. Let's look at squick real quick. It is a possibly a contradiction of squeamish and ick. There you go. All right. Squeamish, ick is squick. I just learned something. Anyway, this is from the Nightmare Fuel TV tropes. I encourage you to read this in full if you're interested. Lots of ideas here. And it is exactly as describes what horror films are going for. They're actually trying to scare the piss out of us and make us kind of find that primordial darkness, the darkness of the dream, or the nightmare fuel itself, which again, very Freddy Krueger like, where you're even keeps you from sleeping for days. And in his particular instance, is because he gets you in your dreams, so you stay awake, terrified of going to sleep. So I don't know, lots of ways to look at this, lots of ways to consider it. But we've talked about where nightmares come from in the past and some other things. But it did dawn on me that I wonder if the term, let's add this as a wrinkle to the conversation, the term nightmare fuel, supposedly, if you go to Nightmare Fuel, Know Your Meme, there's some pretty good stuff on here if you want to read up on this, but it says it was actually, let's see, is an internet slang term used to describe various media, including images, videos, and stories that are prone to evoke intense feelings of terror and or induce insomnia. Now check this out. You may like this. The phrase nightmare fuel, used in this manner, was first uttered in episode 521 of Mystery Science Theater 3000. Yes. Which originally aired on December 24th, 1993. That would be Christmas Eve. Interesting. While watching the film Santa Claus, Crow T. Robot sees an animatronic Santa that causes him to exclaim, "That's some good old-fashioned nightmare fuel." Of course, because of the uncanny valley effect, right? In any case, there's the origin of the term itself. So basically, did we manifest a place by naming it? Or are we able to find it more by naming it? And notice we are in that idea of the quickening, or, we've talked about this quite a lot in the fear media cycles and all the stuff, MK Ultra for the masses. Lots of ways to consider this, of course. But is it possible this is a place and we've named it, and now as such, we are finding it more often because it has been pointed out as a place to find us? A place we find ourselves in the dream space. There you go. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As part of this, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Check in the time. I think we're good. I think everything's fine. That puts us about where we need to be time-wise, and everything looks good. We got Matthew on deck in Colorado and your calls as well. But what do you know about this? Again, it is a pretty great idea, in my opinion, but it's just adding one little word to the fantastic nightmare fuel. The Nightmare Fuel Station. Is this a space we share together in the dream realm that actually brings about the deepest, darkest terror that will never die because, of course, it is the primordial beginning? Tonight we're taking your calls as we discuss the Nightmare Fuel Station. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. Philosophical construct and all, but it's got me wondering, the idea of nightmare fuel. It spawned in 1993. And as we talk about sort of manifesting our own destinies and this type of thing, is it possible that we created a place, or at least put a name to a primordial space in the dream realm that we all share that has been dispensing nightmare fuel since the beginning of beginnings? Just an idea, just a thought, and of course, no answers from me. And there are no answers in this conversation, by the way. It's just, it is one of those things that let's consider it. Let's be creative. Let's wonder about the wide universe as it is, the omniverse, as I like to call it, including the dream realm and everywhere else. And what the hell's happening in that regard? I don't know. It does seem to me like it's possible to share some dream space, okay? We've talked about that in the past in many different capacities, okay? So like that part doesn't really spook me too much. The thing that really gets me is if there's some sort of, I don't know, think of like the black goo from the X-Files or something. And this is the actual dream fuel, the nightmare fuel that's being dispensed into dreams. And again, imagine it however you want, whether it's some sort of ethereal wisp or mist, not wisp, some ethereal mist, something like a vampire changing into a gaseous form, which of course they can do in Dungeons and Dragons, if you didn't know that. And I don't know, a lot of ways to consider this and look at it. But basically, is it possible there's a place that does dispense nightmare fuel in the dream realm, and it's a space that we can't shake because it's a primordial pillar?